Welcome to Startuprad.io, your podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Joe from Startuprad.io, again joined by Chris from New York. Hey Chris, how you doing?
Hey, hello from New York. I'm doing fine.
Of course. And while we've been talking through the news before the recording, we actually already heard the siren, so you're off the hook for a bagel today. By the way, welcome to this month in GSA Startups. We did a little rebranding since we're talking such a lot about Germany as well as Switzerland and Austria together called GSA. So that's why we thought we had to adjust the title. This recording was done on February 22nd. February 22nd, 2022. Isn't that a great date?
2. Yes, of course.
This recording is sponsored by Invest in Hessen and Startupraven.com. It is also in syndication with our own radio station, Startup.radio, our partner station, IBGR Network, as well as the Fanzine blog. We recorded this news episode as said, 22nd of February, and we bring you everything from Switzerland-based unicorn, new unicorn by the way, to a new quick take on delivery. Pardon the pun. We start out with a mega deal. Chris is shaking his head. You cannot see him right now. He already knows the news behind that. We start out with a mega deal in gaming. ESL Gaming is sold for $1 billion US. They're based in Cologne. Munich-based FinTech Systems is sold for 120 million euros. And Aachen-based Next Ego may accomplish the turnaround of the whole year. They're coming out of insolvency and looking to get listed with a SPAC deal at a valuation at approximately 1.5 billion euros. Switzerland has a new unicorn called Standout. Gorillas wants to buy a French competitor and is thinking about a SPAC deal. Also, we have a large update on neobanks in Germany for you, and they are not all doing well. Let's talk startups. As always, in our show notes, you find an option to subscribe, and big thanks to our enablers. This show was made possible by Hessen Trade and Invest with the brand Invest in Hessen. You can learn more about them here, invest-in-hessen.com. We also run a dedicated sub-podcast with all interviews and news in cooperation with them. Find them here in the show notes and Startupraven.com, the best way to identify investors and cooperation partners for early and later stage startups. Sign up for early access at Startupraven.com. Chris, you got some top news, right?
Yes, definitely. And because one thing we were looking at in the past couple of weeks was the changes in the, probably you could say, digital gaming industry. We had the huge Activision deal, and we also had a big here in the US, and we also had a big deal in Germany in esports, to be more precise. And their ESL Gaming, a company based in Cologne, is sold for $1 billion US to the Savvy Gaming Group, backed by the Saudi SWF. And so kind of like the state-owned fund, you could say, like the Sheikh's fund. Yeah. And and it's an interesting story because, I mean, ESL is one of these like hidden champions, and they are the biggest in the world for esports gaming. And it's going to be interesting to see how this whole ecosystem there is going to evolve, because I think it is one of the it is a really, really cash cow, but if you're not into esports yourself, it's really as if it doesn't exist. Like, it's one of these industries that, I don't know, like, it's very hard to miss out on if you're not into it yourself, and it's not as visible as, I don't know, if you don't care about cars, you still are confronted with cars every day. With esports, it's a bit different. We also saw a takeover worth 120 million euros. The Swedish Tink buys the Munich-based FinTech Systems, which is an open banking service provider, for, as I said, 120 million euros. And then we have the story that you already kind of hinted at, that there is a car manufacturer in Aachen in Western Germany who just got out of insolvency protection, and whose idea it now is to say, let's do a SPAC deal in the first half of 2022, and let's aim at 1.5 billion euros. And it's a real interesting story because it also shows that right now numbers seem to be everywhere, all over the board, and especially if you're in an industry that comes with a lot of fantasy or potential, like electric cars still do. Apparently, you can have the bravery or the self-esteem to aim really high. In the spirit of being a podcast for Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, so for all three big German language-speaking countries in the middle of Europe, we also have a look at Switzerland, where we see that there is a new unicorn called Standout. They raised 150 million US dollars at a unicorn valuation, meaning they're worth more than $1 billion. And the company provides scanner software, for example, for FedEx, Carrefour, French supermarket chain, and the German drugstore chain DM, like CVS in the US. We also have Gorillas in the news, one of those like turbo delivery grocery startups. They are also considering an SPAC IPO according to Deutsche Startups, and they are set to acquire the French rapid delivery startup Frechti. Frechti? I don't know how to pronounce it in French. We have news in the neobank section that are being done by Jörn.
Exactly. Thank you very much. I have to admit, I also don't know how to pronounce this French startup, but I've never studied any French, so I may be excused. N26 is in the news. Ha, what a surprise. We have some articles collected for you. The leadership team of N26 is still losing people. The COO, Adrian Gromley, is leaving. They are also intending to start, as they say, soon, their crypto offering, and they are rumored to use white labeled the service of Bitpanda. They also indirectly disclose their revenue numbers of premium customers. 45% of their revenues are premium account fees, which leads to approximately 300,000 clients on average. The Berlin-based neobank Vivid raises 100 million euros in venture capital from investors. But not all neobanks are doing well. Hamburg-based neobank Reimagine has to file for insolvency. First, they wanted to be a bank for entrepreneurs, and then they pivoted to a green bank, and apparently the investors did not buy in there. Also, there was an extensive article on the new broker Unicorn Trade Republic. Some interesting facts been revealed in this interview. 84% of the users are male. 47% of the users are new to the stock market, of which again, 50% are 18 to 26 years old. Of the total, 70% aim for long-term investments, so not there for trading in and out. 56% actually are not in for the thrill. And in total, the users invest approximately 60% in equities, 26% in ETFs. In equities, I mean directly owning shares in companies, and only 2% in derivatives. The median return of the users has been 7.1%. This is from 2019 to summer 2021. And I have another typical German story, Germany and Telegram. The Ministry of Interior successfully established contact with Telegram messenger service and its leadership. Apparently, someone in the ministry Googled successfully an email. As a reaction, Telegram closes 64 channels after pressure from the German government, including one of conspiracy theorist Attila Hildmann. I think we talked about him in the past, and he's not that important at all. Housekeeping, time to brag. Guys, it is again time to say thank you to our audience. Actually, we made a landing exactly at top 400, at number 400 in Chartable's Global Business Podcast. Thank you for our audience. There is also a little hint. Currently, our website is doing pretty bad. It will soon be replaced, and we are currently in the process of moving content to Medium. Soon, you will find all our show notes and blog posts on medium.com/startuprate-io. Also, there is a hint at an event. The EU Startup Summit will take place May 12th to 13th in Barcelona. They say, at this exclusive in-person event, we'll be showcasing many of Europe's hottest startups and coming together to learn from some of the most successful European entrepreneurs of our time. There is a special 20% discount for our audience if you use one word or capital letters, Startup Radio 20. Note, if you listen to this via one of our network partners, you're also, of course, able to use it. Chris, you got some news on the ecosystem, right?
Yeah. So, moving on from like the little housekeeping section or bragging section, the ecosystem always taking a closer look at the different cities in Germany and, that is the hub section. The ecosystem taking a closer look at what is going on overall in the startup scene in Germany. And one thing we definitely see right now is that politics gets a lot more involved and becomes a lot more supportive financially even for startups in Germany and Europe as a whole. So we had been talking about the 10 billion startup program of the German federal government in an interview in summer 2021. And now we see that there are many, many new programs on the horizon. We have all the links in our show notes, but just to give you an idea, there is the European Tech Champions Initiative, which wants to spend more than 10 billion euros on European startups. There is the Europe's CHIPS Act to bake in up to 2 billion euros in funding for startups and scale-ups. More about that at TechCrunch. Then there is the German Federal Finance Minister, Christian Lindner, from the pro-business Liberal Party, who sees a prospective startup program of 1 billion euros, in which also the government invests in scale-ups. And then there's the European Commission, which adopts the European Investment Council, EIC, work program for 2022, which also unlocks an additional 1.7 billion euros in funding. If you add it up, if all these programs go through, there will be a funding push of almost 14 billion euros for European startups. So a lot of money is being put into the market. We also see that the Hamburg-based Brightpoint Capital is in the process of raising Europe's largest privately managed umbrella venture capital fund. A goal is to get 500 million euros. We see Cherry Ventures from Berlin, which raised a new crypto fund of 30 million euros after a 300 million euro fund last month. It also seems as if there's someone pretty busy raising funds from LPs. The EIF Venture Capital Survey for 2021, we have a link for that in our show notes, gives us additional insights about the VC ecosystem. And in terms of politics, we also see that the digital euro bill due early 2023 will be due early 2023, as is written by Bjarke Smith-Meyer at Politico. This would be quite an acceleration compared with former timelines and shorten the whole process by a couple of years. And so the whole topic of virtual currencies in the euro countries is being emphasized, you could say. And we also had some more somber news. More than 1/3 of Europe's top VC firms are yet to hire a female partner. Get your act together. Moving on to hubs. And the idea there always being that there are many deserving startup city and entrepreneurs who will never get a lot of English coverage. And that's why we have this section to highlight many of the German interesting startup projects. We start in Frankfurt and with you.
Great. Thank you very much. Frankfurt seed funding of 1.1 million was just recently raised by Hired, spelled HYRD, the Early Career Network. Frankfurt-based Intranav, a specialist for real-time surveillance of production lines and warehouses, is bought by Nasdaq-listed Inpixion. The transaction was actually announced by them in early December, but we just found the release on the website this month. I mean, better late than never, right? Frankfurt-based Operations One raises 11.1 million for its software that manages operations and connects workers. Frankfurt-based Helaba, which is a bank called Hessische Landesbank, meaning the state of Hessen, they invest in a Munich-based impact fund. The European Investment Council EIC Accelerator invests 30 million euros in 3 green startups, including CO2 BioClean from Frankfurt. Note, we'll have an interview with CO2 BioClean coming up pretty soon in our cooperation with Invest in Hessen. We will also have an interview that's already edited with Professor Philipp Sandner talking about stablecoins and the digital euro. Plus, we already have an interview recorded with a political analyst talking about the new government of Olaf Scholz and their position on startups. Right now, it's a little political, a little bit high level, but we'll do a follow-up soon. And of course, they'll all be released pretty soon. Talking about my native city, Mainz, Via Campo Group. It's an online retailer of wine. They made an exit 2021. The company that bought them went public, and now it was disclosed that was worth 125 million euros. Darmstadt, a little bit to the south, TU Darmstadt wants to become a startup investor with their program IP for shares, and it already started with a fusion energy startup. Let's talk a little bit more south. Waldorf. SAP buys Taulia and becomes a competitor of banks like Deutsche Bank. And the last story for me in hubs, Heidelberg, KKR, and other investors have channeled approximately 800 million euros, rule of thumb 900 million US dollars, in Unser, formerly known as HeidelPay, a payment app from Germany, but there is not a lot to hear and find out about them, but we'll keep track on them. Chris, you got some more news about other cities, right?
Yeah, definitely. And first, some minor additions, like TU Darmstadt is actually a university, which tries to start a startup investor, or try to turn itself a bit into a startup investor. And then SAP, I think a lot of people in business know it anyway, because they have these insanely successful software, but it's also considered one being like a real epitome of German business culture of the last couple of decades, but at the same time being really big and blue chip-ish. So it's really interesting, I think, to see institutions like these look more and more into the startup space. And it all just goes to show that I think overall the German business sphere becomes, or even business and societal spheres become more and more comfortable in dealing with the startup world, you could say. So it's little signs everywhere. Dresden, in the eastern part of Germany, there is Wandelbot, which raised 84 million in a Series C funding. It's a robotic software company making industrial robots accessible for everyone.
And we may add that it's 84 million US dollars.
Oh, what did I say something?
No, you didn't say any currency.
Yeah, 84 million sausages, as my math teacher in 5th grade always said. 84 million what, Christian? 84 million what at the unit. So, Munich, moving on to Munich, Marvel Fusion gets 35 million euros to accelerate the rollout of Made in Europe clean energy. And then we have a company that wants to bring new work models into the world of customer services. They are called Youmday, Youmday. They landed 30 million euros for that. We have the health startup Climedo, Climedo, which picked up a 5 million euros funding boost. That's like a nice little amount. That sounds healthy for growth. And as we said, we are a podcast for other German language countries as well. Moving on to Austria and Switzerland is your job.
Why do you always surprise me like that, Christian? By the way, do you want to disclose the name of the teacher that traumatized you so much in the 5th class?
Yeah, sure. Herr Benedikt. Herr Benedikt was that.
Mr. Benedict, yeah. Talking about Austria here. Pretty hard cut, right? Austria. Go Student, the tutoring unicorn from Vienna, buys 2 companies, Seneca Learning and TUS Media Group, after buying Fox Education already in September 2021, all to extend their product offering. And Firstbird, one of Vienna's first HR tech startups, exits to a US-based company. There is some Switzerland news. Swiss-based Russian Elon Musk builds a cargo drone with a speed of 19,000 kilometers per hour called Jungfrau. Chris, what is this in miles per hour? Such a drone would make transatlantic freight delivery much faster and cheaper, but could also have military applications. This is not a perfect example since a drone would need time to speed up and slow down, but if it would fly all time at maximum speed, the drone could deliver parcels from Frankfurt to New York City in 20 minutes. That is fast, right?
That sounds dubious, but sure. I'm waiting already what you're going to send me.
I'm also pretty confident it will not classify as green and sustainable transportation. Talking a little bit about the bigger guys, UBS, Union Bank of Switzerland, they have brokered 300 million Swiss francs in investment in Swiss startups so far. And then Revival Healthcare Capital, 415 Capital, and existing investors invest 90 million US dollars in Lausanne, Swiss-based Distal Motion for the development of their robot surgeon. Let's do a little bit general news company section. Fintech. Today, apparently, we're very heavily leaning towards US banks. But first, Crypto.com was for months aggressively marketing to German clients, apparently without having the proper license. JP Morgan plans to enter for the first time retail banking in Germany with a robo-advisor based on their recently acquired Nutmeg platform. And another US player, not a bank, after 1.5 years, Vanguard Invest started the pilot phase of its robo-advisor based in Berlin, reports German startup blog. On February 22nd, they sent us an email that they are live now, so today. They want to price the total offer at 0.8% fees, which is very low compared to others in asset management in Germany. And of course, you can learn more in a German article combined with an interview from the German CEO. I would just like to add that Vanguard was the first company that made ETFs popular, but they're index funds popular, but they're not necessarily ETFs, so they're not traded on a stock exchange. You always have to deal directly with Vanguard or one of the people hired by them or companies. Chris, you got some very, very few selected fundraisings, right?
Yeah, just some of the highlights. We see for example, the private equity fund Carlyle and PayPal invest 100 million US dollars in the Germany-based e-commerce software company Shopware. We see that Berlin's Maid, MAYD, gets paid 30 million euros in a Series E round, in which Lightspeed leads the parade. And we learned about the health tech startup Ada Health closing a Series B round at over 105 million euros to accelerate their growth. Cosuno bringing in $30 million to digitize the construction industry. And we see that Eight Roads Ventures, Piton Capital, Kingsway, and Pico Venture Partners invest together with US astronaut Thomas Stafford in the medtech Patient 21, a former Auto One manager, and 110 million euros. And we see BioNTech and railway operator Deutsche Bahn investing 100 million US dollars in a Tunisia-based AI startup called InstaDeep. Some HR announcements we found interesting. Binance snapped eToro CEO for Germany and is now rumored to apply for a crypto custody license in Germany. And we see that the former head of development for Audi and Volvo, Peter Mertens, joined Munich-based mobility startup Deep Drive. And now coming to like your favorite joke of the show, which I don't know if I appreciate, but yeah, I'm also not strong enough to fight it. Go ahead.
Togetherness or so. First, Amor Lee was once a shooting star of the Berlin startup scene. They had a female co-founder who understood to make the online sex shop really classy. First, they were sold to Pro7 Sat.1, a TV station group in Germany, very active in the German startup scene. Then they were sold in October last year to Dutch EQO Group. Now there is bad news. According to recent press report, approximately 30% of the headcount will be cut by the new owner. And a new take on quick delivery. This is a new one. Finnish quick delivery startup Wolt, WOLT, broadens its delivery to include sex toys to be delivered within 35 minutes in Hamburg. I found this pretty interesting. 35 minutes. That's some speed. Other news. Bird.com, meaning not the company, nothing. It's just the URL. Bird.com was sold for 2.5 million US dollars. MessageBird actually outbid micromobility company Bird, reports TechEU. Crazy how much people spend on a simple URL. And we have another interesting article, how Swedi, ZEWDI, Berlin's first Black-owned travel agency, highlights Black German history from Travel Noir. Biotech billionaire and SAP co-founder Dietmar Hopp digs deeper to back one of the drug developers in his portfolio, meaning he has been a billionaire before, but he's one of the very big and serious biotech investors here in Germany, including, for example, CureVac. Then one more news for me. German deep tech Vara is on track to accelerate breast cancer screening. Chris, you got some more news to close up the news today, right?
Yeah, sure. We nearly made it through, but Home24 surprises the markets with stagnating revenues and dumped its forecast. Takeover of the brick and mortar retailer should be completed in the second quarter of 2022. And we have something about Tiger Global, which are normally headquartered here in New York City. But since they are a large investor in the German-speaking startup scene, we thought that we'd also mention them. They raised 11 billion US dollars for a new venture fund exceeding their target. Some more information about that can also be found in our show notes, linking to the information. That is it on the news front. To stay ahead of the curve, we have an interesting article about following the money in the air taxi craze, which I don't know. It seems kind of like collateral damage of the pandemic for now, and just seems as if it's not the right time for air taxis. But what do I know?
It was always a pleasure talking to you. Have a good day and talk to you soon.
Bye bye from New York. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.